Okay, so we have audience now. Vishal, we're live. Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. This is Kush. Uh, we have a webinar that's just starting in probably 2 minutes from now. We'll be speaking about the role of Internet of Things in smart infrastructure and industries. There are two panelists to today's discussion. One is, of course, me. I'm the CTO and COO at Sendra. We are a LoRaWAN network operations company. I'll be giving you some more introduction about me. But before that, let me welcome Mr. Vishal Goyal from ST Microelectronics. So Vishal comes from the marketing division of STM, and he's going to be talking about uh, Bluetooth Low Energy, the IoT digital portfolio of STM, and he's responsible for the whole Asian domains, New Zealand, Australia, and India. So that's going to be the format. I'm going to be talking first about uh, the things I have to say about the smart infra and industries, and then we'll be taking it up Q&A at the last 10 minutes of the discussion. Vishal would be going next. Um, and yeah, that's kind of the format. So let me just begin by making a small introduction about myself. So I did my bachelor's from IIT Roorkee. I did my MBA from ISB Hyderabad. I'm an electrical engineer. That's what I studied. And through the last decade, I've been working on different dimensions such as embedded hardware, embedded software, networks, SDNs. I've been working also a bit on the R&D side, on the materials as well, enterprise SaaS, etc. But the core focus areas for me over the last decade has been Internet of Things and deep tech products. I've had multiple patents and research publications in advanced materials, data-driven algorithms, physics. But I call myself an entrepreneur at heart. We also at Senra we contribute towards the government's Digital India initiatives. So we participate a lot in policy making as well. And in my free time, I try my hands on guitar. I've been playing guitar for close to 12 years now, and a bit of rock climbing if I can. At Sendra, I'm responsible for the technical vision of the company. So all the products, all the partnerships, all the alliances, be it India, be it bringing in technology from outside India to the country, and also the operational efficiency. So working towards setting up LoRaWAN networks in smart cities. And we focus a lot, and one of our USPs, I would say, is innovation. We are very tech driven. We are not just deploying networks, but we are also providing service level agreements against those networks. So what we try to do is we try to focus a lot on SLA based packed networks for smart cities, for smart industries, and I'll try to take you through what that means. Um, so what's on the agenda for today? I just gave you a small know your speaker session, and we'll be focusing on the LPWAN and LoRaWAN ecosystem in India. I'll be taking you through some slides which talk about numbers and how fast the digital transformation is happening in industries and smart cities in India. And most of the presentation will be focused on India. I'll also be giving you, and probably the most interesting piece of today, the primary piece would be a case study of what has happened in some of the greenfield, brownfield projects in India in terms of IoT, and what could have been improved in those IoT projects, because some of these projects are almost 3 to 4 years old, and how has IoT advanced in the last 3 to 4 years? What can happen in those projects? I'll be talking a bit about Senra so you understand where I'm coming from, and a few smart infra projects of Senra that we did in smart cities. Okay, so let's start. So this is just a general breakdown from 2018 on how the split between the IoT projects has happened. So if you see, most, like almost a quarter of the projects were smart cities. That's the biggest, let's say, volume driving the IoT projects. So a lot of these things are obviously coming from the USA, from Europe, but APAC is growing. So 2 years back, it was 18% of the whole share of the global IoT projects, but it is fast moving, and we have seen after the COVID crisis is now kind of in a decline. A lot of tenders have started opening up, so a lot of these projects have also started revamping and regaining their full momentum. Of course, the second highest global share of IoT projects is the connected industry. So I'll be also talking about the first and second. I'll not be going into details about the others, but I think we'll have enough for the next 20 to 25 minutes on our agenda. Uh, okay, so let's just deep dive. So why is LP WAN useful? There is a few big USPs of LP WAN. One is the range, and one is the long battery life. So when I say good range, the way the LoRa modulation is meant, it provides a lot of receiver sensitivity to your end devices. So how that translates is it gives effect to a huge link budget that you can utilize to propagate to a longer distance with a decent amount of packet success rate. So that transforms into range. So when I speak about range, I'm not talking about a kilometer or two. That is easily, we have been seeing a good range in dense cities and urban populations such as Delhi, Chennai. But depending on what kind of transmission output power the devices have on LoRa, or on LP WAN in general, you could achieve much longer ranges. So in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, we are even seeing up to 18 to 20 kilometers of range. Theoretically, a lot of people, like, the higher you have your gateway off the ground, the further you'll be able to reach. So theoretically, we have even heard of 100 miles and more, but I'd rather keep it more realistic at around 10 to 20 miles in the best cases. So that's about the range. We have, again, due to the way the modulation is done, we have a ultra long battery life. We have the way also the LoRaWAN specifications, which is the software spec of the LoRa modulation, is it also helps with a very, very extremely long battery life. So when you consider cases which are non powered, let's say powered with a battery, such as a water meter, for example, we would be expecting ideally with LoRaWAN at least 5 years of battery life. But in good cases and with one uplink per day, let's say one data uplink per day, we're even seeing up to 12 to 13 years of battery life. So that is the kind of battery life we are talking about. LoRaWAN also, because of the long range, you deploy less infrastructure, and when you deploy less infrastructure, we can pass off the cost benefits to the end customer. So LoRaWAN also gives us a big cost advantage. Um, and we figure out more than 55% of the IoT market can be addressed with LP WAN. The one area where you can say maybe a consideration for LP WAN would be the data rate. Of course, when you have a lot of time on air, your devices have to send data very far. That translates into not able to support something which is a high bandwidth requirement. Let's say if you want to stream an HD video, it would not be probably possible on LoRa, and LoRa is probably not going to be a good technology for that. But you have other technologies available, LAN, cellular, which can facilitate that, but at the expense of a high power consumption. So your battery in your smartphone, if you keep watching a video the whole day, will drain within a few hours. And it also comes at the expense of a shorter range, right? Because the further you move away from the base station, the poorer your signal would be, and that would reflect on your mobile data rates, cellular data rates. The kind of use cases that we address are generally metering, temperature monitoring, asset tracking. You can talk about weather monitoring, or different other kinds of remote monitoring scenarios, location tracking, so on and so forth. What we cannot do, or what we should rather not focus on, is audio visual, smart TVs, Bluetooth kind of applications, not directly through LoRaWAN, and CCTVs and smart grids and mobile phone based communication. This is a nice slide, basically trying to tell you about the effect of range from a LoRaWAN base station on the device communication and the battery life and such things. So we have something called a spreading factor in LoRa, which increases the further away from the base station you go. So when you look at a 10-mile radius versus a 1-mile radius, the spreading factor for 10 miles would be probably an SF12, whereas it will decrease to SF10, SF7 the closer you come to the gateway. But and that has a direct implication, let's say, with the energy that you need to transmit this data with, and the time on air. The further you go away, the more the energy that you need to transmit the data with, and the more your time on air is, right? Because your data is actually traveling 10 miles one way, and if you consider bidirectional, it's a long time on air. So you have to spend a lot more energy, you have to throw with a lot more energy when you're trying to do that. um, the payloads take an impact as well. Again, the closer you are, the bigger payloads you can successfully transmit. The further you are, maybe around 50 bytes of payload would be helpful. And then also, again, the further you are, the more energy you spend on transmitting the data, the lower your end device's battery life would be. So those are a few things. It's all, let's say, software defined now using the LoRaWAN spec. So you don't have to worry a lot about how to manage all of these things. The software specifications handle all of this on its own. So you have something called adaptive data rate and such features that can actually take care of the right spreading factor for your devices. But everything's overwritable. Yeah. Now, coming to different kind of LP-WAN. So LoRaWAN is not the only kind of low power wide area network out there. You've got other LP-WANs out there, but it is the most widely adopted LP-WAN as of today. We have some good technologies coming up, such as NB-IoT, but in India, we still think there is a few a few quarters delay before we see any real project on NB-IoT anytime soon. The best advantages, I'll try not to go through everything here, but the best advantages that we see with LoRaWAN are the standards. Firstly, the standards are governed by the LoRa Alliance, which is a global a body of more than 500 members, with all the big name companies out there. Let's say most of the big name companies out there, including Vishal's, ST Microelectronics, including Google's, Microsoft's, and others, AWS, IBM. So every company, they come together, they formulate these specifications, they keep revamping the specs to keep it more recent, to more updated with regards to the industry requirements. LoRaWAN also support bidirectional communication, built-in security. LoRaWAN has a decent amount of immunity to interference. I'll talk a bit more about that. And yeah, it's interoperable, so that means your devices do not need to depend upon one network server only. It could be talking to, so once you produce your device, it could be onboarded on any network server out there, as long as it's LoRaWAN spec compliant. Okay, so a bit about global market predictions. So by 2025, we are expecting, in terms of the number of LP-WAN shipments, the units, the hardware shipments, we are expecting almost 350 million units shipped. And in terms of value, it's almost close to 2,000 million euros by the end of 2025. So that's a pretty huge volume, and because LoRaWAN is already the most widely adopted LPWAN technology, I think a lot of it is going to come through LoRaWAN, and probably the second, the fastest growing technology, perhaps we estimate to be maybe Cat-M, NB-IoT. Right. So as I was summarizing earlier, LoRaWAN is interoperable, meaning the devices that you develop from your factory could talk on any LoRaWAN compliant network server out there. A lot of countries are being covered by LoRaWAN networks right now. So you have India, where Shenra is a major player. You have other players in the ecosystem as well. A lot of Europe is already covered. A lot of US is already covered. So it's very fast growing. You have scalable device management. Your device communication is very secure. In fact, there is several layers of security built into the spec itself. The data itself is encrypted, AES 128, and you can support actually triangulation. So you can support a device which doesn't have a GPS on it. You can try to locate it using triangulation with LoRaWAN base stations. So geolocation is supported by the spec itself. Then the total cost of ownership is pretty low for LoRa. because of the lesser amount of gateways that we actually deploy to cover your devices. We get the advantage of long range coverage as well as long battery life. So I hope this is clear. I'm going to be quickly kind of transitioning into industry specific market scenarios. A lot of numbers through here, but what it's essentially telling you, a few things to notice would be probably the CAGR. The market is expanding really fast. You've got almost consistently 7.3% CAGR in until 2020. You've got your industrial IoT market being valued at $110 billion by 2020, which is this year now. And the global impact on the economy would be 14.2 trillion. So that's a huge number published by Accenture. And in India, what we expect is almost 18% of the IoT market share would be coming from industrial manufacturing sector. I'll try to go into what that means. So manufacturing industry is huge. Of course, there are different IoT adoption drivers. So the ones that we are seeing the most traction in are basically around operational efficiency improvements, productivity improvements, and creating new business opportunities. So the first two are probably going to be self-explanatory, but what does creating a new business opportunity mean? I mean, there are cases now, for example, using IoT, you are now able to do condition monitoring of goods in transit. What that means is you can give a value add. So you don't just transport your goods from point A to point B, you also monitor the condition of the goods through the entire journey. Through how many bumps there were there on the road, were there any specimen broken, was there any gas leakage, was, if it's a cold chain system, then was the temperature exceeding a threshold. So there are a lot of these value adds, new businesses that are being enabled due to IoT, which were not there in traditional, logistics industries. Of course, then there are the more popular ones. Popular but not widely adopted are reducing the downtime, which is under the gamut of, let's say, predictive maintenance. And you're talking about asset utilization, the ability to sell products as a service, which is something like I just mentioned earlier. Reducing asset life cycle cost, enhancing worker safety. Now, this is going to be, nobody saw COVID coming, right? So this is probably going to be very important considering the social distancing norms in industries, opening the industry with a limited percentage of the labor. So yeah, so how to ensure worker safety? It is coming up very soon. We have got solutions in our portfolio which combine the capability of BLE based distancing with LoRaWAN based long distance transmissions and long battery life. So those are things I think I and Vishal would be talking about. Enhancing product innovation processes, and then better understanding of consumer demand. One specific section within the operations and logistics. So the logistics in itself has got a huge impact on the IoT market. So $1.9 trillion value add to the IoT digitization efforts. Now the logistics could be categorized in different steps, right? So there could be one called capacity management and another called planning and reporting. What this essentially means is how IoT can help here. You have your autonomous scanning, sorting the cargo in real time. A lot of robotics also now addressing these areas. Now you have your tracking of the inventory. It could be a traditional RFID system. In fact, one project that we did was converting local RFID tagging and backhauling all of this data uh, in like acres of land, backhauling all this data from different RFID readers across the acres of land to a central hub using LoRa. So we are able to combine RFID with LoRa like that. Then we are talking about route optimization, condition monitoring, the cases that I just mentioned. While the goods are in transit, you could do with GPS, you could do proper route optimization. We are doing that for waste monitoring. So how waste monitoring, basically municipalities, for example, are able to know which waste bins to empty based on the fill level detection of the waste bins using sensors. And then the GPS route is given to the truck driver to only go to the waste bins which are almost full, right? So there are those use cases which are enabled using IoT, and also route optimization could be done using onboard GPS. Now, fault detection and prediction, this is, I guess, again, self-explanatory. Now, coming to what smart city infrastructure gives us, you've got various verticals in smart city infrastructure, but the most, let's say, the biggest ones out of the ones listed here, we are seeing the biggest demands in energy management. Urban mobility is picking up very fast, primarily because the sheer number of people India has and the amount of traffic it causes, the amount of people that have to be managed. So the more organized it is, the better ROIs are for us. So urban mobility, energy management, water management is the huge sector that is leading the IoT volumes for us, as well as for the smart cities in general. Then you've got your waste management, and e-governance and health and education. These are sectors that we wish to see booming, but based on how smart cities prioritize these sectors, we expect these sectors to boom probably in a couple of years from now. But already a lot of progress has been made. So you're talking about your regular CCTV installations across smart cities. So there are those traditional technologies that are being adopted, but there's a lot more that can be done, and I'll not go into details there, but definitely a lot more scope of expansion and improvements. Um, so again, another study by 2023 expected $47.7 billion smart cities market in India. So huge market to tap, and somebody has to be proactive, whether it's a device manufacturer, a system integrator. They have to be proactive today to be able to tap this tomorrow. Okay, so the case study I was going to talk about. So this is regarding predictive maintenance. What we would like to talk about at Sendra is, so you know now a bit about how LoRaWAN works and what kind of constraints are present in the LoRaWAN technology, and how these constraints can actually be used and leveraged in actual industrial IoT scenarios. So this is something I'll try to touch upon. So talking about the Tirupur textile mills case. So this was almost a case study from 4 years back, and there's a specific reason why I'm bringing this up. It's a bit old already, but why I'm bringing this up. So the textile mills convert basically cotton to yarn, and Tirupur is the textile hub for India. It's also called the Manchester of India for a long time. So all these textile mills cater to a lot of these garment manufacturing units across India. So all these textile mills, the machinery that they use, 40% of the cost of production of the yarn comes from the electricity consumption. So that's a huge amount of percentage of cost. And some of these industries have been there for decades and decades, meaning these are brownfield projects. The electrical wirings and are very inefficient, sometimes even faulty. The machinery itself that has been there is also pretty old, still doing the job. It's around, every factory has around 200 to 300 machines. And when there are problems in these machines, the machines will give you a direct visual feedback, sometimes not, but they would definitely give you an impact in terms of the efficiency of running the machine. So how the efficiency comes into picture? By the one input that the machine requires, power. So the amount of power that the machine consumes because of, let's say, a dislodged belt or a wobbling pulley inside the machine or a worn out motor, it would directly reflect upon the amount of power due to friction and other things that the machine consumes. Now, how this impacts, this will result in a frequent downtime. So the machine tripping might be one problem, but the machine itself sometimes trips the whole power line, or short circuit, creates a short circuit, and then that would have a much bigger, much larger impact. Definitely not desirable, right? The way the textile mill owners would address the problem is they'll call an electrician at first, because the machines themselves are very old, so they're most probably out of warranty. There's no direct repairs that they could do. So the first thing that they would do is they try to check the electricity consumption and the manual monitoring, and then they would do detection, rectification on the spot. This could take hours, if not days. This is very indirect. The process is ridiculously slow, but it is what it is, and is the story in general brownfield projects. What that results in is a double whammy. You've got a machine that's down, and you've also got increased power consumptions due to faulty machines. Um, what these textile mills decided to do was individual energy meter monitoring of every machine basically. So they installed these smart power monitors on individual machines, retrofitted them at the source of every machine, and then now they are able to tell us that okay, so now we have a central voltage and power measurement software where we are able to tell you which machine is consuming the most amount of power, and reading this data with using some sort of analytics and some sort of industry benchmarks and supplier benchmarks, they are able to predict that okay, this machine doesn't look like an order, let's do a proactive repair on this. Great idea, right? I mean, this is what is basically predictive maintenance. There is although still inefficiencies here. If you really think about it, so if you really think about it, what is happening here is that your machines are not giving you a direct data. It's rather data that is secondary, because you are not able to just by looking at the voltage reading of the machine tell what is exactly wrong with the machine, right? You are not able to tell whether it was a wobbling pulley, or was it a dislodged belt, or the motor is lacking lubrication, or whatever it was. So this is all just secondary data, and it can still be better than having no data at all, but there are things that you should think about. And I'll come to how IoT is advancing. So this is a story from just 5 years back, and in the last 5 years, LP vans have really started dominating this whole scenario. So I'll tell you what we could improve, right? Uh, Definitely, the first thing that you should look at is are the environment noisy? When I say noise, I don't just mean acoustic noise. Of course, it's going to be very noisy that way, but you are also looking at the RF interference, you are looking at the electromagnetic interference from the machineries themselves. Um, and um, and there's no one RF technology fit all. Why I say that? Well, physical cabling could not always be an option. You can't just start digging the earth and start laying cables across the whole factory floor, especially in brownfield projects such as these. So you require some sort of RF networks there. But before you start jumping onto okay, let me deploy a Wi-Fi network out there, or let me look at some other protocol, you have to really look at what's the ambient noise floor, right? You have to look at what's the kind of electromechanical equipment, what kind of RF signal in which band, if it's in band harmonics that they are producing, or if it's out of band noise that is coming due to adjacent GSM tower or Wi-Fi tower. And what are the factors that you should look at before you jump onto what kind of RF network you should use? The first few things that you should look at is definitely one is the application type. If it's an application which requires a lot of data, then you have to have one decision. If it's an application that requires you to just capture hourly data, then it's another kind of RF protocol that you could look at. What kind of bandwidth you require, self-explanatory. What kind of latency is acceptable to the system? Of course, how quickly you want the feedback to come. In generally, in cases of predictive maintenance, you are observing patterns, but in cases of emergency situations, you are looking at immediate data, real-time data. So what's the acceptable latency there? And then what's the acceptable packet success rate? Do you care if you lose one packet out of 100, or if it's an emergency down situation, then is even losing one packet not affordable for the system? And like I mentioned earlier, you have to look at interference, you have to look at multipath propagation. So all of these factors have to be looked at. Just a small note, probably I thought it's worth mentioning here. LoRaWAN networks have an inherent immunity to interference. So when I say that, um, of course, every RF network out there will be prone to interference. The more you destroy a RF signal with with, let's say, multipath propagation or EMI, RFI interference, radiated interference, not conducted, the more you will, the more the signal will fail, the more your PER will drop, or sorry, will increase. But LoRaWAN by design can handle it even like 20 dBm below the noise floor signals. And At the end of the day, it comes to what's the acceptable PER for your application. Again, what are other things that could improve? Um, I spoke a lot about the RF improvements, but I also, if you remember, I spoke about secondary and primary data set. So what that means, if I want to detect a wobbling pulley, what's the easiest way to do that? Maybe noise that's coming from the machine, or maybe vibration that is happening in the machine. So of course, you could additionally add more sensing parameters to the nature of the problem to identify the exact behavior. What are your options here? You could do acoustic sensing. There are MEMS-based microphones. A lot of these sensors that I'm going to talk about are produced by large groups. So ST Micro has its own portfolio of MEMS offerings and non-MEMS offerings for sensors. There are other good companies like the one I worked for previously, Bosch Sensor Tech, one of the leaders as well. So there are a lot of companies out there. So I'm not going to go into details of which company provides the best sensors for which application, but just an idea of what kind of sensors are prevalent in the industry. So there are acoustic sensors, MEMS microphones. I've seen the usage for acoustic sensors in steam-based projects, and vibration detection, where machines have a particular humming noise, and when something gets distorted, then you could detect something. Then you've got your inertial MEMS sensors, so you've got your accelerometers, gyroscopes, magnetometers, absolute orientation, taps and vibration measurements. You might say that, okay, some of these vibrations come under a peripheral umbrella of accelerometers, but sometimes different companies have different sensors for different purposes, different sensitivities. Then you've got your inclinometer, e-compass, and so on and so forth. So all these can help you understand vibrations better, understand directions better, wherever directions are important. Then you've got level monitoring sensors, oil, lubricant level monitoring. You've got pressure monitoring sensors and load cells. Then you've got, so a lot of this could, for example, load cells could tell you a lot about vibration as well, or whether the machine weight is equally distributed on all the four legs, or all the legs equally or not. So a lot of data also comes from there. Then obviously temperature monitoring, not just through temperature probes, but also visual inspection, or using thermal cameras. Computer guided inspection using thermal cameras could tell you a lot about frictions, vibrations, and temperature profiles of specific parts in the machinery. So you've got a lot of options in the market, and how do you choose? Well, based on a very diplomatic answer, right? Based on your application and the working environment, you have to make a proper decision. Of course, you should be talking to an expert from the domain. If you're coming from an industry, there's no one RF fits all or one sensor fit all applications kind of scenario. So you'll have to talk to the experts there. We can help you. Vishal could help you as well. Um, so so a lot of this talk around data is and somebody said the next industrial revolution will be brought about by data. Is that really the crux though? Is more data always good? So I'm going to be twisting from what I was just talking about. I was just talking about a lot of sensors, a lot of different data streams, but I'll try to take a pause. uh, do you really need all that data? What if you had bandwidth constraints of what if you were being charged for the amount of data you send to the cloud? Your cloud is going to get heavier and heavier, so you're going to be needing more storage space on the cloud, plus you are going to be charged by the network operator for more data uplinks. So do you feel the data, the more the data the better for you? Well, I mean, it's again sometimes a bottleneck. uh, One fact may be interesting for everyone: more than 99% of the sensor data is actually just discarded. And I'm talking about specific IoT scenarios where you have to think about low bandwidth. You're not allowed to send so much data because of maybe cost constraints or the RF technology that you choose. So, for example, You cannot just start sending streaming live data on a LoRaWAN network. That will not work that way. High cost of network usage. You might not want to pay so much cost for the amount of data, GBs of data that you want to transmit. And of course, the more you sample, the more frequency you sample with, or the more amount of transmissions that you do, the more power impact it has on your battery lives. um, so yeah, a lot of sensor data that you actually collect is actually discarded. um, but what you could try out, and I'm starting to slowly switch into the edge compute scenarios, uh, you could try to combine the power of the data that could come from your sensors with the advantages that LP WANs offer you, without sacrificing on the sampling rates of these sensors. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is use your sensor data, do your processing locally on your devices, and then only use your transmission and communication modules when you have a decision point that you have arrived to. And a lot of the other data that you gathered could be used to train specific algorithms on your end devices, but not to make exact decisions at that point. I hope this is clear for you. So now smart algorithms can convert very high bandwidth and mixed stream raw sensor data into certain recognizable patterns. The data itself might not be the best use of the communication module. You might not want to transmit all of this data, but you can obviously use this data to train your patterns very well. So this is going to be a make or break situation, I feel, at least personally, in the future. The more your models are trained that way, and I'm starting to now talk about machine learning a bit, the more the more you're accurate when you're trying to predict anomalies in the system. The trick there is, of course, machine learning itself takes up valuable RAM, valuable flash space, so it consumes a lot of resources. The trick is to identify the system rules, what you want to produce as an output, what kind of inputs you have from the system, and then choose the model carefully. One big advice would be to avoid over engineering. When you have a deterministic output, when there are certain thresholds that you can set up in the system, then just use a simple hard coded logic wherever that makes sense. But there would be scenarios, especially when you are using raw data, raw sensor data from multiple streams. A human eye would not always be the best judge of what would be the perfect threshold to implement. In those cases, you have to rely a bit on the self-learning algorithms themselves. So for folks who think this is getting a bit more technical, I'll kind of switch back. Taking a step back, how we can help you there? We have a lot of experience in the IoT domain. I myself, in particular, the company as a whole. Um, we can help you take up a lot of these data-driven decisions. We have got powered modules that could be retrofitted on your end machinery, whether it's a CNC machine with a PLC panel, or you have your RS485 Modbus kind of protocol. So we have got a lot of these protocol conversion modules that could be retrofitted on your machines. And these modules are powered sometimes, so you can do a lot of your edge processing on your own. And a lot of data driven decisions could be just taken on the device side. When you actually get an alarm, that's when you can transmit the alarm situation to the cloud. So that's a perfect amalgamation of edge processing with LoRaWAN. Uh, how Sendra can help you with all of this? So Sendra is basically a pan-India LoRaWAN network operator. We are a contributor level member also of the LoRa Alliance, and uh, we are specializing in low cost, long range connectivity for IoT and M2M solutions. Uh, the LoRa Alliance itself, it's got a lot of network operators, 157 countries with LoRaWAN deployments in the world. In India, you can always talk to us. We started the company back in 2017. We started deploying coverage in Delhi NCR. We now have a presence in more than 70 cities across India. So if you need coverage around you, you can always come and talk to us, or you can go to the website, check out the network deployment page there. We do different kind of use cases. I'll not go into details of everything, but we do everything from smart water metering to waste bin monitoring. Some of the interesting projects like tiger tracking that we did in Madhya Pradesh, and we signed a water meter contract of 2 lakh water meters. This was back in October 2019. We just finished some deployments in Pune in Pimpri area. So yeah, so we are deploying a lot of these tower infrastructures. What we specialize is in basically establishing a service level agreement based LoRaWAN network. We back our LoRaWAN gateways with a network cloud, so it's got its own network controller. We can also provide application software for IoT, so you can actually visualize all your data on a cloud platform, on a SaaS platform. This is the general architecture of how things work. In addition, we could also implement additional security controllers for use case that require that. Um, Maybe just an idea of how we do things. I'll try to wrap up my presentation so I could give enough time to Vishal. But this is a general network layout for Bangalore city. So as you can see, this is what the city looks like. These are the number of gateways that are deployed in the city, and this is how an end coverage would look like. So this is a very dense populated coverage. We could make it more dense or less dense based on the use case. Now water meters are generally requiring a more penetrative coverage than a street light project, right? um, so yeah, so we do a lot of planning and optimization. So we gather the sensor transmitter RF attributes for finalizing how many gateways we require. So the more output power, the lesser the number of gateways, or the more receiver sensitivity of the end devices, the better we are able to send down links to the device. So all of that is evaluated. There is a nice onboarding process for any device vendor. I think right now we are at about 40 to 50 different device vendor partnerships for India. So if you have any IoT use case, you can always contact our sales team. Then we also plan the potential sites. We have existing collaborations with all the tower companies, so we can leverage their telco towers to deploy our LoRaWAN base stations. And then we also do our site RF simulations and planning, and yeah, the ground clutter and simulations and all of those things. I guess this is already covered, so we could help you with applications, so which are completely developed in-house, network management, data streaming, network deployment, and RF surveying of that entire area, SLA-backed network basically, as well as through our vendor ecosystem, sensor and devices for your end-to-end use cases. One particular example recently came out of our smart water metering project. Basically, the challenges was that there was no real-time meter reading available, and the operational costs were way too high. The billing systems were not very streamlined because the people would generally go and take a reading from the site, or they would be implementing some AMR systems where people are actually roaming around in the city collecting data, but still having to knock doors in rare occasions. So there is no real-time availability of data. There's no real-time availability of billing, and especially during these COVID times, a lot of people complained about inflated bills, not only from water but also from electricity meters. So a lot of these problems came up because there was no live setup of getting real-time data from these meters. Also, there's a big problem of non-revenue water for the smart cities, so which is caused due to water theft, those kind of scenarios pertaining to India. What we developed was through our partners, again, smart water meters deployed in an entire city. So like I was saying, we just installed one in Pune for about 10,000 meters. It's going to expand further, but the meters are sending data to the LoRaWAN gateways, from there to our LoRaWAN cloud, and from there to the city command and control center. And now the users even have ability to monitor their water bills. So what were the key takeaways for that? Well, I mean, um, uh, we had a lot of different things that we achieved with that one simple architecture. The flow of water, abnormal water consumptions, pointing to leakages and pointing to tenants which are stealing water, comparing one locality versus another so as to plan the water supply effectively, We understood that during holidays, the water consumption was almost 3 times more than usual. And so a lot of these insights couldn't have come from manual way of detection. And then what we think will be the future would be a lot of AI driven processes, a lot of bill collection tools that could be more real time, simple payment mechanisms, so simple billing softwares integrated with the real time consumptions, and big data analysis giving organizations more value and more 360-degree insights into operational efficiencies, and definitely reduction of non-revenue water. So this is kind of what I had in mind for my part of the webinar. If there are any questions that you have, you can put them in the Q&A section. um, I will stop my sharing, and maybe Vishal, I'll make a small introduction to Vishal, and post that, Vishal, you could probably start sharing your presentation as well. All right. So right. So we have Vishal Goyal, who is the Group Technical Marketing Manager for ST Microelectronics RF and analog custom products for the ASEAN region, Australia, New Zealand, and India. Vishal has held this position since 2015. Just give me a minute. I'll unmute. Okay, yeah. So Vishal has been in this position since 2015. Uh, Vishal started his career in STM back in 2002 in India as a design engineer in Central Research and Development. And in 2017, in 2007, if I'm not wrong, he joined the marketing department, and he was responsible for the analog products for India. Since then, he was appointed as a senior marketing manager for analog, MEMS, and sensors. So you can talk to him anything about sensors as well. And his mandate was expanded to include Asian regions and Australia and New Zealand, including India, in 2015. So since then, he's actively supporting the customers for full IoT product development cycles, and he's helping to develop the ST ecosystem in collaboration with customers, ODMs, design houses, EMS providers, and distributors. He has published more than 30 technical articles in global publications, and he's also a graduate from IIT Roorkee, so that is one common connection between us. And he's an MBA from IIM Lucknow. So with this, Vishal, I'll be passing the baton to you. You can take over. And guys, if you have any questions, just feel free to put them in the Q&A section, and we'll be answering them after the webinar.
Thank you, Kush. It's a pleasure to be sharing a webinar with you. So I hope I am audible to everybody. So
Yes.
um, I saw your presentation. There are a lot of things, a lot of use cases which you have talked about, and uh, there are some answers to those use cases which I think will be reflected in my slide. So okay. Okay, so the agenda from my side is to give you a small introduction on industrial IoT, solutions for asset tracking, solution for predictive maintenance, Bluetooth low energy and value addition to LoRa ecosystem, and social distancing solution. Okay, so first a brief introduction about my company, ST Microelectronics. It is one of the world's largest semiconductor company with the revenue of $9.56 billion in 2019. We have 46,000 employees, out of which 7.8K are working in R&D. Um, and we have 100,000 customers, B2B customers across the globe, and 11 manufacturing sites. Okay, you can see our location of R&D, sales and marketing, and production. India is one of our biggest R&D center based out of Greater Noida, and of course we have 4 sales offices in India. Okay, to give you some motivation regarding this, so basically, as we see that the electricity demand will increase by 30% from 2020 to 2030. Okay, and to keep the carbon dioxide emission uh, like increase in temperature, if you have to limit by maximum 1.5 degrees Celsius, you have to keep the emission down by 45%. And electricity energy from renewable sources will contribute from 10% in 2020 to 20% in 2030. And this trend will be driven not only by improvement in power electronics or improvement in the source of energy, but also will be contributed very strongly by an IoT ecosystem. Particularly in IoT, what we see that there would be 2 billion industrial IoT and utility connected devices by 2022. And the security market itself in IoT would be more than $10 billion next year. And there would be 90 million new 5G IoT connection in 2026. So the penetration of IoT in industrial domain, in B2B domain is increasing very fast. Okay. Um, Talking about something on asset tracking. So when we talk of asset tracking, it basically falls into four major categories. One is outdoor real-time monitoring, which means you are tracking things which are outside, such as containers, livestock, e-bike, fleet management, pets. Or it would be industrial logistics like pallet tracking, luggage, parcels, or you may be offering the guarantee on goods such as for medicines, food, maintaining the cold chain, or disposable like letters, packages, and parcels. These are the four major, you can say, segments within asset tracking application. And what we see among all these four different applications, four things which are common is you need some processing and security. You need some sensors, you need range of connectivity solutions, and you need power management. And they have their own different specifications, like it may be rechargeable battery, or in case of disposable it may be a very thin film battery. The sensors will change depending upon the use cases. And Chris has mentioned about edge computing. You may have to implement edge computing because you don't want to send all the data via connectivity media. Okay, you may need multiple technologies, multiple connectivity technologies. So combination of short range technologies along with LoRaWAN, for example, BLE plus LoRaWAN to take care of both short range and long range requirements. Okay. Uh, Talking about sensors, the various sensors which are very strongly used in these applications are accelerometers of various types, pressure sensors which can even detect the altitude and so accurate that it can even tell you on which floor of the building you are. Temperature and humidity sensors for, let us say, livestock monitoring, cold chain monitoring, MEMS microphone, and time of flight sensor to detect the proximity. So you need a lot of sensors in these particular applications. And then what we provide for those are various reference designs such as NFC, Bluetooth, sub-gigahertz, LoRa tracker. So this is the one which we provide if you are connecting your devices on a LoRa solution, and of course cellular. So some brief introduction on that. I'll come to predictive maintenance now. So predictive maintenance, Kush has very elaborately explained you about the use case of Tirupati Mills. Um, so I think I will pick it from there. So normally when we talk of preventive maintenance, we talk of quarterly maintenance or monthly maintenance, which is at a fixed duration of interval, irrespective of the condition of machine. And that's what was happening, let us say, in Tirupati Mills earlier, right? Then we talk of condition-based monitoring, where we are talking about the threshold. So we put certain parametric threshold that if those thresholds are crossed by an unexpected level, we need an immediate action. Third is predictive maintenance. So in the predictive maintenance, we do continuous data collection and analysis. Then we use that data and put into several machine learning algorithms. Uh, and there can be combination of those algorithms on the cloud, on the gateways, on the edge. to properly optimize the data and the processing speed and processing resources, and take action ahead of time. So that's how the evolution in the industries is going from preventive to condition to predictive maintenance. And so what you need, you again then need a lot of sensors which are actually monitoring those footprints. Then you have to take those sensors data to the gateway. You 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 implement local AI solution, local analytics and algorithms, and then send the relevant data to the cloud, which will further do another higher level of processing analytics, and then provide the right amount of actionable item basically. Okay, so there is a mix of edge and enterprise and cloud in optimized predictive maintenance architecture. For example, if I take a motor may have different type of faults. It may be imbalance, losses, output shaft, or gear mesh fault. Every type of fault produce a different type of frequency. So if by sensors you are gathering the frequencies, and you can do a local FFT solution or local machine learning advanced solution, you can actually detect the fault in the motor in the edge itself. And then you can send the final information over LP1 technology with using LoRa to the cloud, and then you can take an action on that. So that's how you are mixing the combination of sensors, the local processing, and a long range connectivity to arrive at a right solution for predictive maintenance. How do we enable that? We have, let us say, launched recently a very powerful industrial IoT kit, which has got the relevant hardware, even battery and connectivity options. This is famously called as ST-Win. What is there in this? We have a microcontroller which has a capability of running multiple algorithms, including machine learning algorithms. All the sensors which are possible from our side, all these are industrial grade sensors. Secure element for security, BLE connectivity, okay, and several connectors and power management. So this single node can do everything to provide you a solution to a gateway, which will further have connectivity to LoRa, and you can take this uh, data to the LoRa network basically. Okay. um, Talking about Bluetooth low energy, so Bluetooth low energy, in fact, is one of the most pioneering, particularly short range technologies which is there, which has emerged in the recent time. Some of the use cases of which Bluetooth is addressing are Bluetooth location services such as item finding, asset tracking, wayfinding, access control, and this particular domain is rising at the CAGR of 32%. And the other is device shipment, which means device networks, automation systems, control systems, and monitoring systems. This is rising as 26% CAGR. And that's where at ST we are putting a very strong focus to complement the long range technologies such as LoRaWAN. Okay, some of the use cases where this is being deployed are e-metering. We did with Enel in Europe, then with Siemens, electronic tip counter, meters and breakers. Okay, so we have BLE deployed in several industrial solutions. Okay, because of course BLE is giving you a direct connectivity to your smartphone or to your gateway, and this data further goes to the cloud by a long range technology. Okay, so recently we have launched a very state of the art BlueNRG chipset called as BlueNRG LP. It can go up to 2 Mbps speed, up to 8 Mbps, 8 dBm of output power. Okay, and minus 104 of sensitivity, so to give you a very good link budget. And it can give you 128 concurrent connection. So it means like Chris was explaining you, a farm field where you could maintain the whole farm with with various sensor nodes which with BLE connectivity, and those sensor nodes will get connected by a BLE network to a gateway which will have BLE plus LoRa inbuilt, and you can take the data of all those 128 nodes on a LoRa network. So it becomes an optimized solution that with a single LoRa connection, you are actually managing 128 concurrent nodes. Okay, and of course, power is a very important criteria for IoT devices. So this device can go up to less than 1 microampere in the deep stop mode, and comes with a cryptographic security. Okay, so this is the one which we have recently introduced. What is another important factor is the compatibility with the smartphone, because BLE main use case is to connect to the smartphone. And what is also important that it should work with all the type of smartphones which are available in the market. To ensure that our customers don't face problem, we have done an interoperability certification with more than 200 phones of 20 plus worldwide top brands, and we can provide the data of those smartphones to our customers under NDA. Okay, to ensure that you don't face this problem on the field. Then again, we have launched a standard BLE mesh solution, which will further complement, you can say, a connectivity to a long range technology, because you can have whole of your home, your bulbs, your fans, your devices, appliances connected in a mesh network, and the mesh network uh, can go out of your home through a gateway which will be powered by a long range technology such as LoRaWAN. Okay, I'm little bit quick because we are running short of time, but of course we can discuss these things if you are interested in a deeper detail if you contact us. Um, One solution which we have very recently introduced, and we have, let us say, we have been very successful and deployed already in tens of millions of pieces already, is social distancing solution. So social distancing in offices, e-commerce, factories, sports events, concerts, hospital. Okay, and we do this via BLE. We have launched an application note, uh, which means we are giving a complete SDK working solution, uh, hardware plus software reference, and an application note to explain everything how it works, which is available to our customers to use that. Okay, how we do that, you see some working, you can see we are using the RSSI as a window to detect the distance of various nodes and generate the alert on that. Okay, now in social distancing solution, in most of the use cases you require a connectivity to the network also, and that's where what will become important is to have to take this data which is working on BLE over a LoRaWAN network to the cloud, and then it is made available to the authorities, to the industries who further want to monitor those data. Okay, to do this, this is the hardware board which we have, and you can see it's a coin cell size board, just 2.5 centimeter in diameter. There are all the possible sensors and BLE connectivity, and it is running motion algorithms, voice over BLE, and BLE mesh inside. So you have everything which you require, and social distancing solution runs inside this board, and this board can be further connected to a gateway or to a LoRa module to take this data outside. Okay, so we are strongly pushing from ST is a dual radio turnkey solution, which means a combination of BLE and a long range technology. In particular, I would say LoRa. What is the advantage? The advantage is that the BLE connectivity will give you a power of direct UI interface, configurability, local monitoring, diagnostic, and firmware upgrade of the devices. Whereas LoRa can give you remote monitoring, tracking, and positioning of a device, as Chris mentioned, by triangulation, for example, notification of events, data aggregation, and diagnostic and assistance. And what we can do is this, that we can directly drive directly connect a LoRa module to our BLE without a need of an external microcontroller. So this makes this solution very interesting and very cost optimized, because you are basically getting a power of two technologies with a cost of one. Because if you don't use BLE, you anyway need a microcontroller in most of the solution. But with this solution, you are basically getting BLE free along with LoRa. Okay, and we again provide a turnkey solution to enable this particular solution. Um, so you see, this is the block diagram of this LoRa IoT tracker, which has got sub-gigahertz IC to enable LoRa network. It even has a GPS chipset, so TCO solution from ST. Various sensors, accelerometer, pressure sensors, temperature and humidity sensors, power management, and supported by range of hardware and software solutions. So full functional pack, which is like a turnkey solution, turnkey software solution, which you can directly use and start developing. Okay, so with this, I'm coming to an end of my presentation, so that we have some time for Q&A session. Thank you.
Thanks, Vishal. Excellently complimenting. I think so. Yeah, if you guys feel like there is a requirement on manufacturing, or if you come from an industry background and if you think there is something that our ecosystem could help you with, you can contact Vishal. Vishal, if you could mention your contact email also on the
Yes,
chat.
let me just go back again. So this is my email ID,
Perfect.
vishal.goel@st.com.
Perfect. I'll so you can keep this slide up, Vishal. I will just go through the questions
Yeah.
that we have received up to now. So guys, if you're interested in asking any more questions, this is the time. Just feel free to ask anything. We'll be keeping the session open for another 10 minutes, and we'll be going through the answers one by one. So the first question was if I'm pronouncing it right, is Amadu. Do you think LPWAN could succeed in substituting industrial networks like Modbus and CAN to have sensors directly connect via LPWAN? Are LPWANs as strong as industrial networks? I guess the questions for me. So yes, I think we can definitely substitute Modbus and CAN, but I will not give a blanket statement, because there are different requirements that are solved by different kinds of networks. Definitely, so Modbus and CAN are more physical layer protocols. We are talking about RF when we talk about LPWANs. So I would not say they are a direct replacement, but what we do generally in cases where a machinery already has Modbus ports is we have intermediate converters which convert Modbus protocol to LoRaWAN based protocol. So when we receive some data over a Modbus line, we can directly send it over LoRa, so that you don't have to lay a Modbus cable from the machine back to your servers. So that way we kind of integrate with Modbus. But of course, if you have the independence of not using Modbus at all, yes, all your devices in your entire factory floor could directly be communicating over an LPWAN network. So yeah, that's possible. Answering, are LPWANs as strong as industrial networks? That's a subjective question. When you talk about strength of a network, maybe you're talking about latency. Definitely, no LPWAN protocols latency will not be as high as probably your physical cabling. But if you are just talking about packet success rate and strength in those terms, yes, it could match or even be better um, for industrial environments. The next question is from Anonymous. If there is there any frequency band for LoRaWAN? Yes. So every country has its own ISM band. LoRaWAN operates in the free spectrum, and for India, it's 865 to 867 megahertz. Although the DOT is kind of trying to expand the spectrum for 1 megahertz in this 865 to 867, and an additional few megahertz in the 900 megahertz spectrum. Question from Aisha: in how many cities you have deployed LoRaWAN coverage? As of today, we are in 70 plus cities across India. We were trying to expedite to 100 cities, but due to COVID, maybe a few cities might take a back step. But we will be coming up with more cities in 2021. There's one more question from Anonymous. As you said, data is the future. Are you offering something related to data? I'm not sure if that question's for me or Vishal. I could take it up, and Vishal, you could add if you have something there. But so we have something called a Ginger, which is a data visualization platform. Using that, you could create you could create a free account. Number of devices are free on that portal, and you could it's a DIY portal, meaning that you can set up your own payload, you can add your own devices. The platform itself is agnostic to RF technology, meaning even if you want, you could publish data on the platform from a BLE hub or LoRa hub or NB-IoT or Sigfox. So it's, the platform itself is not RF dependent. What is the criteria to assess cost of a particular solution? Vishal, maybe you take this one up because I've been speaking for some time now. So,
Okay, so basically, there are two, three things. I have heard three, four or five questions. I'll just give one or two comments, then maybe I will come to cost also.
sure.
Is that the LoRa solution is not competing with other connectivity technologies. So if you talk about LoRa replacing Modbus or CAN, or it is replacing even long range technologies, it's not. There are use cases where you will see that these technologies will complement with each other. So in most of the robust use cases, you will see that CAN Modbus will exist along with LoRa. Okay. Then we talk about data. Now data is like, as Chris mentioned earlier, there are 99% of sensor data is not useful. So then we see is that that's why we need to have analytics at the edge, gateway, and the cloud, so that you manage the data in the right way. You do local processing, local analytics, then to get a bigger picture, you go to the gateway, and finally to really get a high quality data and do high quality analytics, you do it on the cloud. And that data is very, very precious, I would say, rather than getting all the sensor data which is available. Then we come to the cost. So the criteria of cost, there are several things which basically define the cost of a solution. The cost of the device, I would say, what does the whole of the device cost? The running cost, okay, the reliability cost, the cost of quality, everything is important. Now, if let us say when we talk of LPWAN technology, we are, let us say, replacing GPRS. Uh, Normally the cost of LPWAN is cheaper, the device cost is cheaper than GPRS, but at the same time the running cost is less. But what is also important is that you will save on the size of the battery. You can manage with a coin cell battery, as Kush said, or even for 5 years you can keep running on a coin cell battery. So you are saving the cost from there. So whenever you evaluate a cost of a solution, you should look at a holistic picture, which includes everything, not only just the cost of one particular module per se. You have to talk of cost of device, cost of running, cost of quality, and then you evaluate which is the right fit cost for you.
Absolutely. I think so that answers the question very well. Just my 2 cents on the cost aspects. So you're probably going to require to split the cost in capex and opex. When you are working out your cost strategies, your capex would be the first one-time hardware that you would be purchasing. Your installation is very, very crucial because that could make or break the case. It might not be feasible to lay physical cabling through the industry. Then you're talking about your network deployment for your entire factory floor. You're talking about software purchases. So those could be some of your capex expenses basically. And when you're talking about operational expenses, you might be looking at network charges, consumption, power consumptions, and maintenance, and your software license fee recurring. So yeah, you should rather probably talk to some expert who can solution it out for your specific use case. And from there, I think for optimization, you could talk to different individual experts for individual technologies. Vishal, one more question for you is about predictive maintenance. So do you have any solution sensor for predictive maintenance? This
Yeah,
is a
we
question from Fazli.
so firstly, as you may have seen in my presentation, we have a complete solution. Let me show you this slide. I'm only showing you one of them. We have many others also. This is a wireless solution. We even have a solution on IO-Link connectivity, where you can have a complete hardware as well as the software reference with an implementation of FFT and even possibility of having local AI for predictive maintenance.
Okay. One more question from Anonymous, Vishal, I think for you is can you give some insights on the social distancing solutions?
So social distancing solution is again working. I will show you. It's working on the principle of RSSI. Basically, signal strength of two BLE devices. So if people are wearing those solutions, and depending upon the distance between them, the RSSI value changes, and that value is basically deciding the distance between them, and based on that, you can trigger. An action, or you can store the data that this person comes in close contact to each other. I have told you a very simplified version, but the solution which we are offering also integrates the sensor. So like I said, in this board, sensors are also there, so you, depending upon the movement which people are taking, depending upon the hand tilt, we can actually compensate on RSSI value, so that to ensure that the reliability of RSSI to distance conversion is more reliable. If we just rely on BLE for RSSI, RSSI value can even change by the wrist of movement of the wrist. So we have to filter out many of those use cases to give a very reliable solution. And what we give to our customers is a full hardware plus reference solution, hardware plus software reference solution, which you can directly use to test at your end without writing a single piece of code, basically.
That's very interesting, Vishal. So we should probably talk more on this, of how we could also integrate local social distancing and contact tracing and upload all this data over a longer
Yeah,
distance.
yeah,
Absolutely. Um, there's another question. I think you already answered this in one of the previous ones. So it says from Fazli again, for which devices do you have solutions exactly? So I'm not sure I understand the scope, Fazli. Probably you could write it in an email format, or you could
yeah.
ask this again.
Yeah, you may write to us, and then I'll reply to you more specific replies.
Right. Ravi Kashi has asked a question. The new device which has both BLE and LoRaWAN RFE on the chip or SoC. Um, so I don't see a question, but I think if you could, Vishal, want to talk about more
Okay,
about
so
this device.
basically, ST has launched a microcontroller with inbuilt LoRa device. So you can expect to have one microcontroller which you can program for whole of your system, like controlling LEDs, push button, or many other applications, and it can run the LoRa AFE also inside. So that is a solution which ST has launched. And if you are interested to know more about that, you can write to us. We'll provide you more solution. At the same time, what I was also talking is a combination of LoRa plus BLE. So in case you need to have BLE also in your use case, you can even think of integrating a BLE with a LoRa AFE directly, or the SoC which I mentioned, a microcontroller plus AFE. So both the possibilities are there.
So Vishal, a follow-up question from Ravi on this. What are the intended use cases for these two radios?
Okay, so you can see it's clearly mentioned in this particular slide only. When we talk of BLE, we talk of local monitoring. You give a direct connection to the user without the need of external network. You can do firmware upgrade far better with BLE, because the bandwidth on the LPWAN is limited, even though it is enabled, but normally the bandwidth is limited. So it's far more faster if you do via BLE, and you can even let us say diagnose or uh, get into the devices. If let us say there is a LoRa node deployed in meter, for example, water meter, and there is some fault. Instead of opening it physically, if it is enabled by BLE, you can get into this device via smartphone and you can sort it out. What LoRa can help you out is, as Kush has mentioned in his presentation, a lot of things like remote monitoring, tracking, notification of events. So in case you need a combination of both of them, we suggest that you have both these technologies into a single solution.
Right. I think contact tracing for me is a very prime example,
Yeah.
Ravi. I think this is one. And apart from this, we have seen good use cases in indoor beacon tracking and backhauling the data over a kind of a central hub using LoRa. So we have a lot of kind of devices in our portfolio which have BLE inbuilt, a BLE beaconing inbuilt, and then backhauling over LoRa as well. So yeah, those could be some use cases. There is one general question from Dr. Indrajit Bhattacharya on smart meters of Delhi Jal Board installed in Delhi houses. Where can one find the antenna on the meter transmitting the data? Okay, so I think the intent of the question is to understand how smart these meters are. I guess the current installation, if I'm not wrong here, the current installations are AMR water meters from DJB, and these are basically um, short distance RF based smart meters, which means that there has to be a person kind of in the vicinity to capture the data from these RF devices. The device's antenna, I guess it would be, if you're not able to explicitly see the antenna on these devices, it's probably meaning that there is a inbuilt antenna, either a UFL or a ceramic antenna built on the PCB. So yeah, but that's just a speculation. I haven't really seen these meters myself. Um, so Fazli is saying that he will write an email to you, Vishal. That is taken care of. Rahul Kumar is asking, can you comment on edge video analytics market in India? Um, Vishal, do you want to take it up, or I can?
Well, I don't have market information particularly on India per se, but I can say one thing, that if you are interested in a edge computing solution, you can again write to me. I will provide you necessary resources for that from the
All right.
technical possibility.
All right. Same here. I think one of the things that Edge Video Analytics does for you. So I've seen a lot of solutions coming up in conveyor belts and in computer vision using specifically thermal cameras that can tell you a lot about the working conditions, the frictions, the vibrations, and those sort of things. uh, I think I'm not a edge video analytics as well. So if you have specific questions, I could probably connect you to the right guys from the ecosystem that I'm aware of. So yeah, please just do write to me. Predictive maintenance. Okay, so I think that is all the questions as of now, Vishal. I think so. We are also kind of done on time. It's almost 5:30. So yeah, thank you so much, Vishal, for your time and for this productive session. I think we answered a lot of questions for the team, and personally, thanks a lot, Vishal, for accepting the invitation. I really appreciate it, and I do expect to see a lot more synergies with ST Microelectronics and Sendra for the LoRaWAN, BLE, as well as other sensor portfolio that you're handling.
So thank you, Kush. So I think one thing is that ST and LoRa Alliance are a very strong partner. We work very closely. We have developed ecosystem jointly, and Senra is our prime partner when we talk of India LoRa network, and that's always a pleasure to work with Senra. But at the same time, personally also, it is my pleasure to share a stage with Kush. Now we are from same college and we share many common memories. And I really thanks Kush for inviting me today. Thank you.
My pleasure. With that, I'll just stop the webinar. Thank you everyone for joining and hope you have a great day. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Bye.